Ever feel like the resources and advice out there for women are missing something essential? I thought so too, which is why more than 6 years ago, I created She Said, She Said. I'm Laura Cox Kaplan, and after 3 decades in communications and then advocacy and now juggling motherhood and entrepreneurship, trust me, friend, I get it. Making a real impact takes more than just passion. It takes the right mindset, the right skills, the right investments, and the right community. On this show, we dive deep with incredible women from all walks of life who have been there. We uncover the secrets to building influence, navigating tricky relationships, and staying true to ourselves even when it's tough. And let's face it, it often is. I also throw in my own favorite productivity and life hacks, things that have shifted my perspective and might help you too. Wherever you are in your journey, my goal here is to leave you inspired to define success your way and to help you build the confidence you need to tackle your biggest goals. Subscribe today and let's unlock your full potential, your confidence, and your greatest influence. Hey friend, welcome back to She Said, She Said podcast. This is episode 330. Okay, here is something that I think we don't talk about enough. Celebration and celebrating the milestone, something that we do often talk about on this podcast, isn't just about the cake and confetti and all the big stuff. The idea of celebration and celebrating life's moments is actually a powerful, scientifically backed tool for mental well-being. And behavioral research shows us that when we take the time to acknowledge even the smallest wins, those little things that happen throughout the course of the day, we actually reinforce positive emotions and we build momentum. And in the process, we're also creating more resilience. And here, friend, is the really beautiful part. It is not just about celebrating our own milestones. When we celebrate others, our friends, our family, our team, the person at the Starbucks, the person who does something nice for us, we are fostering connection and we're building trust and we're actually creating a stronger sense of community in the process. That, my friend, is influence at its best. Today's conversation is part of our She Said, She Said podcast, the Southern Sea Collaboration series. If you have missed any part of this series, I hope you will go back and listen. We have actually been doing this series for the past 3 years, and I never fail to be impressed by just the insights and the level of depth and the interesting stories that I hear from women that are part of this network. We are spotlighting incredible female entrepreneurs who are not only building brands, but who are creating real meaning in their lives and in the lives of others. And few people do this more joyfully and more creatively than the amazing Darcy Miller, who is joining me this week. Now, you may remember her from her years as the founding editor of Martha Stewart Weddings, or you may have seen her on the Martha Stewart television show. That is actually where I first became acquainted with Darcy. Or maybe you have admired her signature illustrations, her creative keepsakes, or her heartfelt celebration ideas. They are literally second to none. Darcy is an artist, she's an entrepreneur, she's a memory keeper, but she's really a master of infusing soul and creativity into the everyday. She truly embodies the spirit of this idea of celebrating all of life's moments. Now, in our conversation today, Darcy and I talk about how she built her brand. Ultimately, when she left Martha Stewart, how she built her own brand, how her time with Martha Stewart shaped her creative instincts, and why celebration for ourselves and others is one of the most important habits that we can build into our lives. Friend, I think this episode is going to leave you feeling really inspired to make just a little more time and a little more space for joy and for celebration. So, without delay, here is episode 330 with my wonderful friend, the amazing Darcy Miller. Darcy, welcome to She Said, She Said.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I'm so excited to have you. As you know, this conversation is part of our Southern Sea She Said podcast collaboration series. And you were kind enough to join us at the summit this year and
Oh my
did a
god, I loved it. Are
presentation.
you kidding? They were kind enough to have me.
Well, you were a huge hit, and I knew immediately that I had to get you on She Said to talk about your incredible business, your incredible journey, this fabulous book that's here behind me.
Thank
Um,
you.
all the things. So,
You're hired as my new publicist.
thank you very much. Always good to have job
Yeah.
security. Um, I think we should start though for folks who somehow have missed you. I remember watching you very early on Martha Stewart and was fascinated by you way back when. But you've come a long way since then. So I'd love for you to maybe start the conversation by talking a little bit about your business today and what you do.
Right. Well, great. So my business is all about bringing joy to the world, and that is the soul of what I do. And I do it through books, content, digital content, partnerships, and then I have a concierge business called Celebration Expert, where we help people celebrate life. So,
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So, let's talk about how you got your start. You have always been a very creative person. I mean, which is an understatement, I think. But you were kind of infatuated with Martha Stewart. Is that fair?
well, I'm actually not sure I knew who she was because remember when I started to work for Martha Stewart, it was 1992. So she had her books
Mhm.
and she had something with Kmart, but she was not the icon that she is today. And the funny thing is that I had graduated and I had no idea. I had always wanted to have my own business, which I did in high school and college, and my parents said, you need to get a real job for 2 years. You need to have some work experience. And, I struggle with, well, what am I going to do? Because I was a creative. I didn't want to work at a museum. I didn't know how creatives find a career out of that or a job out of that. And so I, freelance for a bunch of different people and trying to figure it out. And then coincidentally, I had a job interview to be Anna Wintour's assistant at Vogue.
Oh, wow.
Devil Wears Prada was me, and or to be the assistant to Gail Towie, who was the creative director who launched Martha Stewart Living with Martha.
Wow.
So it was like, do I go to this place that is like the mecca, the ultimate, magazine job, or do I go to this new magazine that no one had heard of that was starting up as a test?
Yeah.
Um,
And how
so
did you decide? I mean, that's a really interesting point because, to your earlier point, and I had missed this in doing my research that Martha Stewart was not the big name that we think of today. I feel
I
like
mean,
I've
she
known her
definitely
forever.
people knew her, but you knew her as the woman who wrote the entertaining book,
Right.
The Wedding Book, and that she had a line at Kmart, although back then these lines, now every high-end person, everyone has, merchandise, but it wasn't, most people who I asked said, "Well, definitely go to, Vogue because that's the best of the best." After that, you're gonna be able to go anywhere and you'll get the best experience, and it is like the ultimate place to get trained. Um, and who knows, with a startup, you could have a job for a year and it could not work.
Sure.
Um, but there was something about the startup and also what the brand was. For me, the brand of Martha Stewart was about, and she called it living 'cause she didn't want to be stuck to one category. It was entertaining, gardening, cooking, the home. And so for me, I was much more interested in dyeing Easter eggs than talking about shoes. And although I do love shoes, and my husband would say that is not true, you rather talk about shoes. I do love shoes and I loved Vogue and loved everything about it. So, I was more interested in being at the
Yeah.
startup. And the truth is in life, you know, I could have made the wrong decision. It could have lasted for 6 months. It could have folded. I could have then had no job and have passed up this opportunity of a
Right.
lifetime. So a little bit is I took the risk and a little bit is
Yeah,
luck, you know.
absolutely.
So, but who knew that she would become the icon that she is?
Sure, absolutely. Well, there's a couple things that strike me about your story and sort of how you made your decision. And I would think too, like a lot of people around you, there was probably a lot of noise. There's that great line from the movie you mentioned, "The Devil
Right,
Wears Prada." 1,000 girls would kill for
right,
the
right,
opportunity to work for
right,
Anna Wintour. So I'm sure that people around you were like, "You're what? What are you thinking?" How did you kind of turn off that noise and tune in to your own sort of, "Okay, this is I
right.
really."
I mean, the truth is it wasn't like Anna was begging me to come. I had a few interviews, and then I had a few interviews at the same time. And, you know, and actually the reality is that Martha didn't actually hire me. They had a project at 41 Madison, which is like the tabletop building in New York City, and the magazine had committed to doing this place settings, so they didn't actually give me the job. They said, "If you wanna do this project, we're gonna still keep interviewing, but you can do this project for us, and then we can see." So, I actually was doing an internship and doing a
Uh-huh.
million I was doing windows at Bloomingdale's. I said to everyone, "Can I come help you? Can I freelance? Can I intern?" I was offering to work for free. I had my party favorite business. I was doing a million things in those couple months after Penn because I
Yeah.
just was trying to figure it out. So, I figured that this was my chance to get in there, and so I did this project of these table settings, and then they ended up hiring me.
You were talking about early on in the conversation about how it was sort of unclear what you were going to do next. You
Right,
had this degree and
right,
sort of it was sort of unclear. It's interesting to me now with social media and you've got Instagram and you've
right,
Pinterest and all this sort of creative ammunition and ideas and
right,
things like that, that none of that existed before. And
right.
and it in addition to giving you great visual inspiration, I think it probably also gives folks that are just launching ideas about what they might want to do next, right? And opens up opportunities that you didn't have.
Yeah, I mean, just LinkedIn alone or job sites, you wouldn't even know what the jobs were. Like, how would you even know what's available and and so and I think back then jobs were a little more, kind of siloed. You were, at least for me, like you could do window displays or you could do, uh, you know, you would be a lawyer or a doctor or advertising agency or a branding firm. But, I think that there would be a very little way to figure out what is that job that isn't being an artist or working for an artist. And so, I think part of it is that I was smart to like get myself there, and a bigger part is that I was lucky.
You were in the right place at the right time, and you were very
Yes.
talented and well
And that's
prepared,
life.
and yeah,
That's
exactly.
life. I mean, I definitely worked super hard, and that's just in me,
Mhm.
and I kind of carved out my own kind of role there, and that was me, but the fact that I went somewhere that allowed that to happen, when you have a very small staff, everyone has to do
Yeah.
everything. So and that's just who I am
You
anyway. I answered the phones, I ordered the office supplies. Martha was doing the Today Show. I said, "Oh, I have a friend who works in PR. I'll get you some sweaters." So then I started to style her for. I would order, clothes for an entertaining story. I threw myself into anything and everything, and so first one in, last one out. Part of it was that I worked hard and I was genuinely interested in all these things. And if I didn't know about it, I learned about it. So we had done Easter. That I met someone who said she does Greek Easter. I don't know if you know the company Eleni's Cookies. They're delicious if you don't know them. But I had met her and she said, "Oh yeah, I do." I think it must have been in April, and she said, "Oh, I love Martha. I do a great Greek Easter." And I was like, "Oh, really? Do you have pictures? Can I shoot it. And so then I was like, oh, she's a cookie maker. We can have cookies for it. And so I went back to the team. I said, I found someone who does Greek Easter. And we shot it. And actually, she was a very close friend of Kate Spade's. So it was Kate Spade and her husband, and Eleni and her husband, and Elise Aarons, who served Francis Valentine with Katie. And then we helped figure out giant bunny cookies. So, you know, a little of it, as I said, was me being proactive and really being in it, and a little bit is luck that there wasn't someone there finding stories. It was like we were small, so everyone was doing everything. Art directors, stylists,
Mhm, mhm.
writers,
Can you
you
talk
know,
about
we were all in it
maybe
together.
where your creative inspiration came from? Were you always this kind of kid?
Right.
Mhm.
Well, I would say 100% my parents. And my parents both
Okay.
recently died. I have to say, I've been going through all this stuff in the scrapbooks and the travel journals, and it's unbelievable. I mean, my mom had great style, great flair. She was the handwriting that was just her natural handwriting. If you
Wow.
look at my book and a lot of our downloads, it was my mom's handwriting. When I was a kid, that's actually about to be the Met show, the Metropolitan Gala. And when I was little, she worked on that. She worked on the costume shows with Dinah Vreeland. So after school, I would go and she'd be like, pick me up, and I'd be, like, sitting on the floor of the Metropolitan doing my homework.
That's amazing.
But it was never something, like, intentional. It was never like, "Okay, Saturday, we're gonna take you to museum so you
Mhm.
can be cultured." It was just in their blood, and it was just who they were. And, I have a passion for memory keeping and scrapbooking and passing on memories, and we just found these boxes in my father's closet of the
Wow.
notes he wrote his mother from college on MIT station. I'm like, "I cannot believe he has this." Wait, I don't oh, I do have this here.
Oh,
For his
oh my
funeral, I made all
gosh.
these scrap boxes. These are his glasses, like, kind of elevating the everyday
Oh,
stuff of
love
his
that.
so it's not stuck in a box. Notes, and so I definitely think it's in my blood.
Yeah.
I might have taken it to the next level, because that's who I am, but, it's not. I think it was in my blood, and it's how I kind of grew up. We always made signs for the door and filled the foyer with signs when my father went on a business trip, and we all colored them, and it was like wallpaper of signs. So, and I think for other people, maybe my parents were really high level, but I love that people carry on, whether it's your mother always made this thing at Christmas, and like you're going to always make that one dish because it was something, or you always baked a cake the night before, you know, with your mom for your birthday. And I always say to people say to me, "Oh my God," I look at your Instagram. I'm like, "Oh my God, I feel like such a bad mother." I was like, "Oh my God, that is absolutely not true. This is who I am. I'm sure you do a million things that I don't do." And the
Yeah.
point of our brand is, and our Instagram is to inspire you. It's not to, you know, I love it. Take one idea, even if you took that one idea that every year the night before your kid's birthday, and you can start at any time. You're going to do one thing, or and that might not be your thing.
Yeah. Your whole ethos, part of what speaks to me, so deeply is not only just your incredible talent as a creative, but this ethos of the importance of celebrating the big stuff and the little stuff and maybe the sad stuff too, and finding a way to create joy and memory, to memorialize those amazing things that you have experienced in your life, which I think is such a beautiful, just it's sort of ethos behind who you are and
Right.
what you do. And I know you did this, your father passed away recently, and I'm so was so sorry to hear that. But I loved what you shared on Instagram about how you created a celebration of his life. It's really beautiful.
Well, thank you. And I have to say, having run Martha Stewart Weddings for 30 years, that people would say you're a wedding expert, and I do know a lot about weddings. I would say I'm a wedding expert, but as my brand evolved and when I left Martha full time, it was just never a doubt that I'm not that like the soul of the brand is bringing joy, and the soul of
Mm.
the brand is how you celebrate life and whatever that means, big or small. And, people say, "Are you a party planner?" I'm like, no, I'm not a party planner. And I actually don't even really always use the word party. I like to think of it as more celebrate because I feel like there's the soul in that.
Mhm.
And yes, parties are important and I do help with parties. But for me, I feel like celebrate has that meaning of the soul of what you're doing. And we just had, a client whose budget wasn't right for us. And I said to them, I'm just going to give you one piece of advice that just like pick the things that are the most soulful and think about the toasts and think about things. And it doesn't matter what your budget is, but if that, if that emotion is there, then that's all that matters. And that's true of anything. I mean, we had the same, when COVID hit and we had planned to do we actually had a line with, Universal to do a Minions collection for Paper Source, and we had designed all
Wow.
party hats and it launched in the stores when COVID hit, which,
Oh,
as you can
God.
imagine,
Oh.
not a lot of people were buying 16 party hats. Um, and so we were a little bit it was a moment of time that we were like, "What is our content gonna be?" And
Mhm.
I have to say that it was so clear. I remember we got on a Zoom and I said, "You know what? Even with this terrible thing that's happening to the world and to people, people still need to celebrate life. And
Yes.
people still have birthdays, people are still having anniversaries, and even more so that if you're turning 90 and it's COVID or you decide to go ahead with your wedding and you can't have the 100 people, how do you do that? And I think that that helped also focus us even more. It was clear that that was what my brand always was, but it helped focus a little more. And on our website, we have a million ideas that's like Camp Darcy, all these projects you can do with downloads and, Mother's Day templates and Mother's Day notes that you write why you love your mom and then you can send it to them or, you know, and there is always this level. We did these stories on our website about how you celebrate graduation virtually, and it had everything from links to things you can send and games and it was just so clear that celebrating is can be any way. And I have to say that was the maybe one of the silver. There were not a lot of silver linings from COVID, but just the fact that people found another way to be connected. And so if you had originally said, "Oh, we're having a shower and but my friend in California is going to join," or "It's our birthday and it's our grandfather's birthday," you're like, "Oh, I'm going to call." But like we did this Zoom and the kids sang a song because my father did turn 90 during COVID.
Oh.
And so we had planned all this stuff. We played a video on Zoom and all this stuff that you think you wouldn't, be able to do. It's definitely more focused on celebrating life and the little things,
Yeah.
finding little ways to celebrate that. We sell these chasing paper. I don't have any, you can't see any right here, but we sell these chasing paper. They look like Post-its, and they say little things, glass half full with a drawing and stop and smell the roses and just little, celebrate life, little things that remind you that it's important. The last line of our book is life is short, celebrate everything.
Yeah.
And remember then that doesn't mean that you're not stressed or it's not a
Mhm.
juggle to bring up kids or that you're you don't have a partner and you want one or you got fired or there's lots of things in life that are not worth celebrating
Right.
or not, or stressful, but even more so, that's why I feel like you need to find little ways and like my goal is to just inspire people to do that. You could get one little idea, you could get a lot of ideas and one of the things I love most is on our Instagram. We get so many messages from people about, thank you, I did this, I just tried this and, they loved it, or I made your this, or, I made your Father's Day breakfast, or, you know, it doesn't have to be a big party. Bringing your dad, you know, a, you know, coffee in bed and then having an easy download that gives you a certificate, and we just help, not that that is the most original idea, but we just help you facilitate it. So
Yeah.
you're not like, "Oh my gosh, how am I gonna do breakfast in bed?" You know?
Yeah, well, and you're
Yeah.
celebrating that moment, but you're also putting, other people at the center, right? You're making other people feel special, and it gives you
Yes.
inspiration for, gives people inspiration for helping the people in their lives or in their community feel really special.
Yeah.
I want you to go back though, because we've kind of jumped forward and there's
Right.
so many aspects of your story that are so fascinating. One that really struck me was when you were asked to run Martha Stewart Weddings. You
Right.
were 25. You've
Right.
been with the company for what, 2 years now?
Yeah,
Something like that, 2,
can't
3 years?
remember exactly. It came out in '95, and I graduated in '91, so a couple years.
Yeah, you had
Um,
been to some weddings, but you
right.
weren't married.
Not even, like, one friend who was really young got married young, and I remember it so well because I worked on the first issue, and I did everything from find locations to go around and finding wedding dresses. I mean, the things we did, we it was before we featured real weddings, so we set up 3 fake weddings. One of them was in a photo studio where we brought in a tent, a caterer, we set the table. I mean, now
Wow.
when I think about it, I mean, it makes me cringe. And then we did another one at the Burden Mansion, which is this beautiful space up in the '90s in New York, and we set tables. I sugared so much fruit. I sugared lemons. I mean, I one of our interns, I got a wedding dress for her. We got a band to be playing just so you saw musicians. I mean, you weren't allowed to get into the space till Sunday at 6 o'clock at night because they had a wedding there that weekend. So I just remember then we had to, like, be ready, and, then we decided that we were not doing this anymore, and going forward, we were shooting real people's weddings and helping with details. But, so I was the assistant on that, and I loved it. I did a little bit of everything, went to Palm Beach to find locations, and then that we had a big market for advertising, and it did really well, so they decided that we were gonna do 2 a year, and then the next we went 4 a year, and they said, "We're gonna make you the wedding editor." And I was like, please do not make me the wedding editor. I am 25 and single. And my brother in law used to say to me, if you go on blind dates, don't tell them you're the wedding editor. Just say you work at Martha Stewart. That sounds much cooler. Like, that's like the kiss of death. I'm
Right.
going out. I went on a date with the wedding editor. Um, and and I remember Gail and Martha saying to me, you know, I was like, "Can I still work on living?" And they said, "You can still work on living, but remember that weddings is something, all the things that you're interested in and you like, and it hits every category. You never really think of it this way, but it's fashion, beauty, food, entertaining, music, crafts, flowers, financial. Like, there's almost not one category that is not hit with weddings.
Right.
And it's very much about people and a happy moment and bringing people together. And so they said, well, try it. If you don't, at some point you can come back to living. And I was still helping with living a little bit on entertaining stories because we were only once or twice a year. Then we went 4 times a year, and there was no way they could have gotten me back to living. I mean, I drank the wedding juice, and the funny thing is Martha said to me, "You just can't get married because once you do your own wedding, you're gonna be over it and you're gonna have less interest in it." And then fast forward 6 years and, she was like, "You're getting old. You better get married. You're gonna miss the boat." And she fixed me up with my husband.
That's awesome.
So,
Who was one of her lawyers, right?
yes. So, but it was really, I think that it was, and I always tell people to try new things even if you don't know about it, learn about it. And I think it's 2 things. One, again, I threw myself into it. I learned every designer, but also it was a business that grew and evolved, and I'm not saying it was all me, but I think our brand of Martha Stewart Weddings, and we have the incredibly talented art directors, stylists, writers, but I think we helped change the face of weddings.
Yeah.
We put cupcakes on the cover, and I remember Sylvia Weinstock, who was the like Joanne of wedding cakes. She was like, "Darcy, come on, what are you gonna do to weddings?" I was like, "Sylvia, there's still a million pretty cakes in the issue, but we need to push people to try new things."
Yeah.
Um, you couldn't even I always tell this story, which is either funny or pathetic, but you couldn't even buy things separate by the color. So when I got married, it was spring, and I had a specific palette, and I wanted pale green and pale pink M&Ms or candy.
Uh-huh.
You couldn't search pink candy and buy all the pink candy. So I bought the Easter M&Ms and separated them
Oh my
and
gosh.
just put the pinks and the greens in big vases. You can look our weddings on our website. Um, but we really didn't approach we never hired anyone in my whole time at Martha Stewart, we never hired anyone who had any wedding experience.
Wow.
Like, everyone was, just a talented art director, had worked at somewhere else, and they brought a fresh eye to it,
Yeah.
and then one of the things that's amazing about the wedding industry is the people.
Yeah.
The planners, the florists, it's so many small businesses. There are businesses, but there's so many small businesses and incredible experts that they give it their all every day. I mean, you have to have a screw loose to be to want to spend every Saturday night and deal with brides and their mothers and the chaos and the politics, but, I think that if you like it, there's nothing like working on an event and then the next day seeing it all come together, and, I think for me, that's kind of how it all evolved. We have a business called Celebration Expert, which is a concierge business where, somewhere between I'm your fairy godmother slash creative director, editor, shrink. And so high-end clients hire me and us to advise. And, I'd miss working on the real weddings. And I was always like, how do I do that? And people would be like, can I hire you to be my planner? I'm like, no, 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 no. There's so many amazing planners. Let me give you their name. So that's kind of one of my favorite parts of the things we do today, which is helping with these events where like you sit down and I have to actually draw a candy bar today for it's on 70th next week, but hearing that he loves watches and that he plays golf and figuring out how to make that original, or he's from Las Vegas, and how do you make that original, um and just the special winks that make
Mhm.
events special.
Yeah. How is it so I'm struck because you clearly get so much energy from every piece of this puzzle that you've just
Right.
described. I can imagine that it must be hard to maintain boundaries to say, "No, I don't do that. No, I don't do that. I do
Right.
this, I don't do that."
Right.
How did you learn to do that? Was that hard?
Well, that's a good question. I think I'm still learning. I think I'm learning. Um, and Vanessa and I struggle with it because, some parts of this business, is we'll have a client and they'll say, I'm getting this and this. And then they'll come back and say, what do you think would look good? Or should I put a tablecloth in? You're like, that is not part of what that's not in the contract, but I can't help myself. Like and part of it is, I love the people side
Mhm.
of it, and I wanna make sure that person has a good experience, and that's why it is a higher end business. I wish I could do with my time for everyone, but that's why it has to be on the higher end just because, there's only so many minutes of the day. Trust me, I'm struggling with the minutes of the day. But I think that's also everyone, has different things that are obstacles at work, and obstacles no matter what you do. No one says, "I do everything and there's nothing else that I could do better," but I would say if someone said, "What are some of your challenges?" It's setting boundaries for what I give my
Yeah.
clients, and just maybe that's just my
Yeah.
personality, and And I think a little bit of is how I always
Mhm.
was when we had field day. I went to a all girls school in New York called Chapin, and we had field day, 11th grade. And I was like, we should make T-shirts. And then it was like senior year. I was like, why don't I draw everyone's face? We'll put it on the front door, and I'll say, Chapin 1987. And it was like, it wasn't enough. Why didn't I just say class of 87? With a one Chapin girl holding a big C or like I'm like, "No, because it'll be so much cuter if everyone's on and then you can find your face," and so I think I do have, unfortunately, a part of me that likes to, like, take things to the next
Mhm.
level and add an extra wink, and also, at the end of the day, it's also about making people feel good. I'm like, "That would be so cute if I had everyone in the class, and then people could find themselves," and, um, even for Southern Sea, where we were together, they were like, "Do you wanna do a chocolate bar? And then do you wanna do this?" And
And you did the photo booths that were so darling.
right, it's a photo booth, and Vanessa said to me, "Well, once you're doing the chocolate bar, it's fine, you can do the same thing for the you can do the same art on the cup, and you can do the same art on you know, the whatever, the placemat." I'm like, "No, you really won't want that on the placemat because the placemat has a plate in the middle, so the art has to be more, you know." It's just not me to maybe
Yeah.
take the easy way out. I mean, I've gotten better, and having my own business now, I've gotten much, much better, let's say, and hopefully Vanessa would just tell you that, but it's still a challenge.
Yeah, yeah. Let's go back a little bit because you were at Martha Stewart for many years. Um, how did you make the decision to leave? When did you know that it was time
Right.
to go and to start something on your own?
I mean, there wasn't 1 minute that I was like, "Okay." I think I kind of got lucky because Meredith
Uh-huh.
acquired the magazines from Martha. We had been a public company and then kind of the
Right.
company evolved. And so at that time, a lot of the people on my level kind of had left to, start their own thing, or a group of people went on to be still part of the magazine. And it was a moment of time that, my book was about to come out, and it was great because they allowed me to still say the editor-in-large of the magazine and still do a lot of events and connect with advertisers and be, involved, but I wasn't there full time, and that was a moment that I thought,
Yeah.
"This is my time." I still feel, like, very much attached, and I still do content, I'll contribute for Martha, and I still think the Martha way, but it was just kind of again, it's about
Yeah.
timing, it's about luck, I don't know. Because I loved what I did, I feel like it would've been easier if I didn't, because 'cause I'd been like, "I have to get out.
Right.
I have to get out." But because I loved and I was so connected to the brand and felt I loved the brand so much and loved the people and was loyal to Martha, like, it was a hard way to do it, so the fact that it came to me was, easier. And I think that's true about like it all goes back for careers, for whatever you're doing. It's so
Right.
much about timing. And it's hard to know. Like, it's hard to know because there might have been moments of the time when I was like, you know,
Mhm.
maybe now's my time. Or someone would come to me, a big retailer would be like, we'd like you to do something, but you can't be part of the brand. Maybe at some low points of the company, I was offered a bunch of stuff and which again, because I'm such a Girl Scout, I would never do because I'm like, I'm not walking out now. I'm not, I'm a loyal person. And then it
Yeah.
just evolved. And I think that's true of businesses. You always hear businesses that like I remember the home edit, they pitched to me and I wrote a thing on our blog about it. It was a box to clean your wedding dress. Now, I don't know how they got from there to being like the world's experts on organizing, but something, evolved it. And I would have, who would have known when they sent me a wedding dress cleaning kit, that they would take over the world. And so, and even with my business, which is it was almost hard for me to figure out what
Mm.
my business was because I
Right,
do so
right.
many different things, like And people are like, "You should do kids' pajamas, you should do this, or you should have a TV show, you should have," and almost because it's not do so many different things, it was hard to focus.
How did you curate kind of which things were gonna be in and which things were gonna be out, and recognizing that this can still evolve?
I still have an issue. I'm still figuring it out, but, I see you have my book behind you, but the beginning was I was writing the book, and I always wanted to write a book more because I had done all these parties, and I've professionally shot every party I've done, and not to be fancy, but because of my memory keeping, scrapbooking, I just wanted to document it. And I had friends who were photographers in the industry. This one named Donna Newman, who's like a magician who I became friends with, and she was like, "Oh, well, document when Pip was turning 7." And so she started to
That's
one, and then
amazing.
we like kept on going. And so I had all these parties, and so I did this book. And again, you know, the suggestions for the, title were like parties, everything to make life, and I was like, it's not. And the creative one of my creative directors who helped me with it, whose name was Stephen Doyle and was brilliant, he was like, get all these titles away. You are about celebrating everything. And I'm like, that is it. And so from that, it just evolved. We the book, and then we got on the book tour. People would ask us to be on TV, but it was at the time of
Right.
Thanksgiving, so we'd have to come up with Thanksgiving ideas, which were not in the book. So they were like, "Oh no, but the downloads have to be on the site. We need a site with downloads." And then we would start. Bloomingdale's asked me to do a love shop for Bloomingdale's Day because I love Valentine's Day. So then all of a sudden we were doing Lenox China, and so I feel lucky because it evolved from incoming, kind of work. But we do step back and look at what the business is. And a couple years ago, we did a brand deck that really defined who we are. And we are about, bringing joy to life. And that happens through people work with us in different ways through content, for influencer, product. And now we have the service part of it, which um, I struggle with figuring out, but it has been great, and it's given me a little bit of time with I call real people, but one-on-one. So
That's amazing. That's really amazing. Okay, before I let you go, can you tell us
oh, and
about
I also have
yeah.
this you have to get this. I mean, again, we do nonprofit stuff, we do this is a
Oh,
T-shirt that we
I
made with
love it.
Kuehl. I don't know if you know Kuehl. It's an
I do.
amazing
Yeah, of course I do. Yeah.
brand, but I had drawn this on our Instagram, and everyone was like, "I love it." It's,
It's adorable.
arms hugging the palm tree for when the fires happened in LA. We're like, "What can we do to help? What can we do to help?" And again, this goes back to we're the party person. How do we but we're not the party person.
Right.
We wanna send our love. So, like, the arms embracing a palm tree is, like, how we felt. So we partnered, and all the money goes to Zibby's books. Great
Oh, I
book
love that.
shop, and she's an amazing woman business. And so we've been rebuilding libraries that were burned down from the fire. So
That's amazing. I did not realize the Zibby connection because I follow her as well, but I did not make the connection between you and the T-shirts and Zibby and what she's doing. That's incredible, Darcy.
yeah, and it was like, again, because we're a smaller company,
Yeah.
we're nimble. So I emailed, we were everyone was like, "Will you send me? Can I buy this art?" And we're like, "We can't start printing things out from this printer and shipping them." So we thought, we should do it as a T-shirt, and it all just happened. QL made it happen really fast, and then we're like, "Where are we getting the money?" And then I'd been following Zibby and all the things she's been doing. So it's fun,
I love
Yeah.
that. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Okay, before I let you go, tell us about the wall behind you. What is the significance and
Oh, here, I'll move over a little bit. Well, I am a big memory keeper and scrapbooker. And again, it goes back to my love of family, and and so I have a lot of gallery walls. You can look on our site, you can see, we do a lot of content. I showed you my father's glasses. So each gallery wall has a little bit of a different spin. Our one at home is all my kids' stuff from when they're little. And this one is just stuff that's special to me. I can turn it a little.
how
You
often do
can
you change what's on the wall? Are these things that are
Oh, I've never changed this. I've won, whoops, this is what happens at your desk. You have your champagne. This is when people leave, you have to come to our office. When people leave, they get a champagne bottle. So, yeah, with a custom Darcy label. It's a mix of my water paint kit. If you can believe it or not, this is something I just recently found at my mother's house. It's the
Oh, that's
invitation from her
oh,
surprise 40th birthday. Black tie. But it's photos, my artwork. Those are my drawn frames. Actually, we sell those also. A lot of times we'll make something and then people want it. So then we're like, we have to sell it. So we sell them through Chasing Paper. And let's see if I can show you
right.
this. Let's see. Uh, Up here. Oh, here. You know what? I have a copy of it here. But this is one because we had scanned it in. This one's my birthday
And
invitation
that's
for
in
when
your
I was
book, isn't
9.
it?
Swim
Isn't
and
that in your
dine
book?
because Darcy's
Yeah.
9. And it says a Darcy Miller
Oh,
original. Yes, and it's my mom's writing in my art, and I feel like this just says it all. You know what I mean? This says it all. So, I like to live with those things around me, and I always say have this section of the memory keeping on our site, and for everyone, it doesn't have to be complicated. It could be a cork from your first date or from the program from your graduation ceremony or like it's so easy to do. And I like to live with stuff around. I mean, sometimes people feel intimidated because they have so much stuff, and you're like, you have
mhm.
boxes of it, and you're like, oh my God. But like, take one thing, even one
I love
expected
that.
thing,
I mean, that
of there's my
that
paint set up
yeah.
there, one of my paint sets. For me, that's art. It's just, take something normal,
Oh,
frame a baseball. Like we framed one of my dad's baseballs. We're going to put it on the site, but frame your kid's baseball or,
yeah.
if you go to a
I love
tennis
that.
match and
I
catch the
love
ball, like
everything
it
about
doesn't
it.
have to
You
be a
have
whole
inspired me.
collage.
I'm going to hang up the phone with you today and go to the 3 offsite storage units that I have filled with all of these amazing things and all this memorabilia.
Okay. Well, trust me, I have those too. Don't feel like I'm empty. I have
Yes.
bins and bins. We just built a house because I needed more. When you're in New York City,
Right.
we have a nice, big apartment. There's never enough storage, in apartments. So,
Exactly. I'm gonna
so
send you some
I'm with you.
messages and get your help.
Let's FaceTime.
Darcy, this has been fantastic. I really have loved the
Yeah.
conversation. Thank you for spending time with me today.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having
I
me.
loved it. I really
I'm
loved
a
it.
big fan, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, good. Come
I
visit.
will. I will. Hey, friend, as we close out this episode, here's a thought that I want to leave you with. As I've thought about this idea of celebration, it really is more than a personal reward. It's a relational investment. When we mark our own moments and the wins of those people around us, no matter how big or small, we are not only boosting our own mental well being, we're actually creating deeper relationships and we're building a culture of encouragement and connection and influence. And Darcy reminds us that celebration does not require perfection or a big production. Those things are great, but honestly, a thoughtful gesture, a tiny tradition, a simple, I see you, thank you for being part of my life. Those are the acts that build strong families, strong teams, strong communities, and ultimately more personal influence. I am so grateful to the Southern Sea for partnering with us here at She Said podcast to spotlight not just Darcy, but also so many other inspiring women from their network who are redefining what leadership looks like. Friend, thanks again for joining me this week for episode 330. If this episode gave you a little something extra to celebrate or maybe some inspiration for your next celebration, I hope you'll share it. I would really love to hear how this content affects you, how you think about it, if you're able to use it. I would really love to hear. And let's keep building influence and community together, one joyful moment at a time. Until next week, remember, She Said podcast is a weekly production of She Said Media. Take care.